Hey, good evening, and welcome to the fifth monthly DNN Show and Tell Meetup. This time around, we have three demos by your hosts, and our guest, Don Gingold, is here to do a very cool EasyDNNnews demonstration. I think I mentioned already, it's our fifth month doing this, and we have plans to do this through the end of the year at least. And I also wanted to mention, you know, not much of an intro here, but DNN's reached a very smooth patch lately. And if you are still stuck on version 9, you really need to get all the way to 9.13.10 to be at least reasonably secure. It's a well-patched version, but it's not perfect, I believe. It does now have some medium and possibly critical issues in it, but they're the types that are more difficult to get through. And if you're in the 10 range, you have got to get to all the way at this point to 10.3.3. And I have to call out the milestone version 10.2.5 is an excellent upgrade point. So if you are anywhere between 9.13.9 and anything in between, go straight to using the old process 10.2.5. And once you clear that hurdle, that milestone, then it should be easy sailing to get up to 10.3.3. And we've had a lot of success. I've never had such a high percentage of my sites at 10. We have like over 100 DNN sites, but I have a very high percentage above 10.2.5 and a growing percentage on 10.3.2 and 10.3.3. And it's been much smoother. I think a lot of you tried early on after 10 came out. A lot of people tripped over versions like 10.1.1 and stuff. And anyhow, I just want to encourage people to get there. So that all having been said, it's about 10:35 or 6:35 p.m. Eastern right now, and we're going to get started with our first demo. And first person up this time around is Steve, who's going to be using Evotiva DNN backup, and he's going to follow on from his previous demo where he showed us a more manual backup process and talked through all the ins and outs. Really excellent video. If you're doing any backups and stuff, I would go check that out. But if you like the idea and host multiple sites and want to buy a module, which is very reasonably priced and can back up literally dozens or hundreds of your sites easily with really good settings and provide a great restore process, Evotiva backup. And that's my little pitch, and I'll let Steve take over from there. So, introducing Steve Karpik.
Okay, as Jeremy said a couple months ago, I did a presentation on how to do a backup sort of old school way. And today I'm going to do a presentation that is about a much easier way to back up and restore your website. And it's the procedures that I use all the time, which is with the software Evotiva DNN backup. And it is terrific. I've been using it for years. There's a couple different types of licenses. If you're only going to do one website, just get the individual license. It's perpetual. Otherwise, it's worthwhile getting the enterprise. I've been using that for years, and you can get a taste of it with the demo. So let's get right into it. I've created a website called production.localhost. It's a very simple little website that I use all the time for testing. And I've also created another website called recovery.localhost, where I've copied over already the restore files for Evotiva backup. So first thing we want to do is we want to install the software. So I just have downloaded it, and then I say install extension. I go here and next and next and next. And I usually find that when I install it, it takes a couple minutes just to register with itself. Come on, still thinking. There we are. Is it here? Yes, there it is. Sometimes it doesn't show up in the persona bar. So just log out, log back in, and there it is. So let's go back to the home page. Now we'll go to DnnBackup. So what it's going to do, it takes just a moment to compile. It's the first time. There we are. And you'll notice what it says. It says you don't have a license for this thing except for localhost. So now what I'm going to do is I go to configuration, I go to license key and details, and then I just will copy all of this stuff and I'll put this stuff here, update, and now it says, yep, I'm good until next year. So let's go back here and look at what the menu offers us. There's a few things that are quite useful in the configuration. One is the database backup settings. Um, Almost all of my work is done with shared hosting where we can't download the native SQL server files. So I uncheck that and I just ask it to download the DAC pack and the script versions of the databases. I leave everything else the same. Click update and we're good. Then here is where sometimes if there's folders where there's temp files, I'll indicate, don't back up these because I don't need them. I won't go into that right now. Go back to the configuration. The other thing that is really useful that I use, which is the offsite backup. I use Dropbox. I set it up so that after the backup is done, it's sent to my Dropbox, which is quite convenient. The instructions are pretty clear. So now let's move on to the tools. The first thing that I like to do all the time is I like to verify that the database is not corrupted that we're going to be downloading. So we do a schema analysis. So I just say yes. Every now and then it will come back and say, hey, it's broken. Almost always that's a false alarm. Run this again and you'll find it's okay. I think it's when some sort of scheduled task interrupts the checking. So it says it's all good. Database schema validation completed successfully. So now I go to home and then I say perform backup. And if I had set up the option for Dropbox, I could have checked that box. So I click on perform backup and I'm just going to move something over here. This is all my files for my website. So I say confirm backup. And so what it does is it's does a DAC backup, does a script of all the SQL data, and then it also downloads all the files. So this just takes a couple minutes and you'll see if I switch over to here, come on, there's now a folder called backup. And in here, this is where all the action's happening. We can see we have my file that with the validate schema. This is where this long script where it's showing what's happening is it's getting dumped into this file. So far we have downloaded the DAC pack, which is right here, and it's still scripting the SQL. This takes just a little bit, probably another couple of minutes, and it will be any minute now. This is the longest part, and there it is. We have now the script is done, and now it's down. Now it's compressing all of the files. This doesn't take too long either. I've done it with some huge websites and it's worked flawlessly. And we're at 20%. And then once this is done, I'm going to have my files that I can then use to um, uh, create my restore. So we're at 35%. And when I've got a large website with lots of data, it can last for, gosh, 20 or 30 minutes. Oh, something really important. You'll notice I'm doing this in Firefox. Don't use Edge. Edge decides partway through that nothing's happening and it times out the session and you don't see this progress log at all. Firefox, on the other hand, will be with you right through the end. So save yourself some trouble. Don't use Edge. Edge is a fine browser, but not for this purpose. I guess it's trying to be economical in the use of CPU or Lord knows what. But in any case, okay, we're at 70% and we're almost done. And 80%. And come on, finish up. 90%. And 95%. And come on, coming up to there's 100% done, and it says everything's fine. Click to return. We're all happy. So if you look over here now, I've got the record of the backup in one file. I've got the validation of things. I've got the DAC backup. I've got the script backup of the SQL and the files. So now we're going to go over to here, which is our recovery database. And I'm going to move over to here. This is the source files for the recovery. I go into the backup folder and I copy script and I copy the files and I paste them over to here. There they are. Now, if I go to this URL and I do /backup, it's going to do, okay, it says, okay, you're doing a restore. And then we'd say, I always test the permissions on the folder and they're just fine. I go to here. Now this is where I have to enter in the license again. So I go to here because it just uses the free license. There we are, test license key, there we are. And then first thing to do is restoring the database. So the database, hang on, is called recovery. So I type here recovery. I'd already created the SQL database. It's empty, and it has a account that's running it. I call it DNN_SA, and it's got a password. So the first thing I always do is I test the connection. There it is, and I don't need that. And then I put in the password again. Then I go to here. Not now. And then I say, yes, restore the script file that it found. So I say next. No thinking here, just next, next, next. Execute. So what it's doing now is it read the zip file of the scripted version of the SQL database, and it's working through, and it's creating our replica of, there we are. And now we have to set the portal aliases. So we click on this. This takes a moment, but it does, it's actually reloading the Evotiva backup. It does it in several chunks. So I say next step, and then I just say next, and then I don't need that. And so before it was production.localhost, now I want it to be recovery.localhost. So I click on update portal alias and we see there it is. And that's where, and if you have several languages, the other languages are listed similarly. And I have to change it that it's going to a different web service. So I do that. Now it's that. And I do some things to, it's say, safe host settings. It basically makes it so that no scheduled tasks will run, a whole bunch of things like that, just to make it so the uh, restore doesn't get interrupted. So I save that, and then you can see host settings updated. Now, finally, I do next. It says, do you want to do anything else with SQL queries? No, I never do. And then finished, it restarts it once again. And I say, uncompress the files and execute. And this doesn't take any time at all. We're at 15% and 35%. Again, when you have a big website, it takes longer, but for this little one, it doesn't take any time. And 75%, there we are. And that says, go back to Restore Wizard. No, you don't need to do that. You want to go to the home page. So now I am on, it's just now loading for the first time.
Drum roll, please.
Yes, drum roll, here it comes. Takes just a moment. And come on. The suspense is killing me. Are you? Sometimes. There it goes. It's almost. Now it knows where it's trying to go to the home page. Yeah, because it has to compile all of that too sexy stuff. And there we have
Brilliant.
our home page. And then just take a second to load because everything's recompiling. Come on. There and there. So all done. So my website that started out as production.localhost, I backed up with this thing and I recreated it and it's all good. So as I said, it's a terrific tool. When I'm doing development, I'm always making intermediate backups of things just in case I mess up. And when things are in production, it's essential to have them, especially when we're doing upgrades. So that's it for me.
Well, compliments on that, and I'm glad it went smoothly. I mean, the thing that I always regale people with is the old adage, you don't have a backup unless you've done a successful restore. And I know so many people who learned that the hard way. I mean, the really hard way, including me. I mean, it's happened to me on occasion, maybe back 15, 20 years ago. But yeah, that went really well.
It's terrific software, and like I've used it for years. They've sometimes had to make changes as DNN has evolved, but they're
Hmm.
very quick at making those adjustments. And the other thing is, if something goes wrong, like especially when there's a new version of DNN, there's incompatibility. If you contact the guy who wrote the software, he's super fast at getting things fixed up. So
Yeah. I got to mention one thing since you mentioned the schema check. We also do that regularly, and we ran into a problem recently that I wanted to mention in case anyone else runs into it. If you have DNN community forums installed, the latest versions, that schema check is going to fail. It even makes the schema check in your backup fail, even though most of the backup still works. It's been reported to the company as to the developers as an issue, and it'll be fixed in an upcoming version. I think they said it was going to be like version 10. I'm not sure, but they are aware of it, and it's going to get fixed in case anyone else somehow runs into that.
that's it for me.
All right. Anyone have any questions? All right, then. Next up, we are going to introduce Don Gingold from Sprocket Websites. And Don, uh, count 3 full seconds. So we have a break in between the videos. and
Sure.
then get going. Let me know if you have permission to share. You should be able to
Let
share
me
your screen.
let me try that. Yep, looks like.
All right, take it away.
Alrighty, let's go find the right screen and start there. Okay, thanks very much, and thanks for having me. Um, I built a lot of DNN sites and use EasyDNN quite often. If you're not familiar with EasyDNNnews, there's a lot of information out there. Go to easydnnsolutions.com. It's EASY, easy, DNN, and then solutions, and you'll find out all about it. It's a great tool. When you know the other guys, the dark side of the web, all those WordPress sites, they start out as a blog. So you have, starting right off the bat, a blog. With DNN, you have a content management system that you could build pages with and all the kinds of powerful stuff. And this is basically your blog. You put this on here, and many people use EasyDNNnews for their news service. So that's a perfect example of, or a perfect way to start there. They have a lot of other products, a lot of themes, and the themes and news combined is what I'm going to be showing you here today. And I'm doing that on a favorite site of mine because it's my wife's site. She is an author of a glossary for Agatha Christie. She has done a lot of studying, a lot of research with the books are 100 years old now. Agatha Christie, that is, started writing books in 1920, and her legacy goes all the way through the 60s. And she's like the number three author in the world. Next to Shakespeare and the Bible. So I'd say that there's a lot of people that enjoy Agatha Christie. But now that that's over 100 years old, some of the terms that they use in the books are very hard to understand, and so you lose something in the reading of the book. That's Kate's goal, is to make it easier for people. And so what we did was, first of all, we created a book. Then we also have a online database of all the same terms that are in the book, and you can become a member of that database. It's a one-time membership fee, and I can explain how I got that to work, but you become a DNN user, basically a login. Once you have a login, and I'm currently logged in here, then you have access to the database. So let's take a quick look at what the database looks like from their perspective. When I say database, I'm talking about the terms from a user's perspective and not the SQL database, and what a developer would be thinking about. So this is what you see as a member of the Agatha Christie database, online database. The stuff in green here are all of the terms. There's over 2,000 terms and growing in the database as she finds new terms in the next book that she's working on. She's putting them in here, putting the definitions in, and those that have purchased the book, well, they'll have the first 1,800 terms. And if you are on the website and are a lifetime member, then you keep getting them as they come in. So on the right, you see the terms. If you click on a term, let's click on this first one at the top, it shows you the definition of the term. And you can click on the next one and it shows you the next definition. In this case, a 45, it's got a picture of a 45. And then if you keep on going, it tells you the definition and it tells you where it was found. So that's basically how you use the database. All the terms are here, and if you want to know what the term definition is, you click on it and it exposes it. Over on the left-hand side, you can go to a particular book. For instance, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd was released 100 years ago this last June, and so you've got The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and only the terms that are in The Murder of Roger Ackroyd are listed now because I clicked on it. So now you're seeing only those. So if you're reading the book and you want to know terms from the book before you get into it, you can look at it. You could search by a term itself. So if I type in a phrase, I see a bunch of words that match that. And then if I click on one of them, it'll take me to the actual definition, where it was found, what the definition is. This particular one had a picture. It also has content about the picture, like the credit, where we got the picture, and the usage rights for it. And you can also write a comment. So people that are part of the community can talk to one another or leave Kate a message. So that's all the stuff that's here for somebody that's, oh, and there's also French terms and new items. So special searches. Now, how do we do that? You know, that's all being done with EasyDNNnews. So let's look at EasyDNNnews. I am logged in as the administrator. In my case, I'm logged in as the host, but still the administrator would be just as fine as well. And now when you go to this page, you see all of the DNN stuff that you typically don't see. And in this case, for EasyDNN, the key thing that I want to tell you about here is right here. EasyDNN for the module that's sitting here. This is the article module. So a typical use of a EasyDNN is a news list. So for instance, here's a news list at some other website, and it's just, you know, news article, news article, news article, one right after the other. That's exactly what you're looking at here. Instead of each news article, each one of those is actually a glossary term. So we just type in the term itself as the title of the article. And then if you click on it, you get the summary underneath it. So what you're seeing here is that actually is the title underneath here. This part is the summary. And then if you look a little further, there's this little finger here. And if you click on that, it'll take you deeper into it. It shows you where it's found, etc. And what I did was I went to EasyDNNnews and looked through all of the different themes that they had. There's a bunch of them. So, oops, sorry, I'm got myself logged out for some bizarre reason. Once you go, this is the interface for EasyDNNnews. It's a very, very good user interface for the developer, for the person that configures EasyDNNnews on the website. And one of the items is the theme and template selection. One of the cool things about EasyDNNnews is that you can select from a bunch of options. And in this case, there's a whole bunch. Some of these are mine because you can create your own from here. And I started with this simple with accordion. So I'm going to do that right now. Save it, go back, and I'm going to show you. This is what I started with. And it looks a lot like what you saw a moment ago. So I said, well, this is kind of a nice interface. I want to go with this, but I don't want exactly this. I want some of my own things here. I don't want the read more button. I want that little finger that's on the side there. I want the where it was found. I want this customized. And so the way to do that is you go to the settings, back to the theme, then choosing the one that you have and you edit it. Now I'm going to, do the old adage where your cooking show where you get you to the place where it's something that's already been cooked. So I'm going to edit the one that I built just to show you what I did. So here is the template for a simple accordion, but then, so it starts with this message at the top. And I wanted to add a message to make it easy for people to understand it, so tap on a term to see the definition. Then this stuff here is EasyDNNnews code. I didn't touch any of that, but I went down here and I started editing. So down here is where the title goes. So that's where the title is, where the detailed target and the lazy load of an image, if there's an image that exists, and then the categories and the summary. So here's the summary, and here's the found in, and see these tokens here are EasyDNNnews tokens that give you all this stuff all automatically for you, which is great. And then underneath that, I put in an extra message, tap on the book or chapter title, and then it repeats. So this whole thing right here, the repeat before and the repeat to the end, does the listing capability. And that's what you do. You save it when you're done, save it as, and I created this list articles. Oh, see, and that's it. All right, so that's how I created this thing. And let me move this out of the way so that I can actually close this here and here. There you go. And close it. And then come back to the page. So that's how I got this to look the way that I wanted it to look. I can do some more stuff and tell you a little bit more about EasyDNNnews, but I tell you, EasyDNNnews is a great tool. I've got it on many, many websites, but this was just a little bit different in how it's used. It's not really being pushed as an article by article type of thing, but actual glossary. So you could do a lot of things with it. That's what I did here. Um, I did a little bit more. I was able to actually create her book out of the database. So she puts all of the terms in, makes sure that she's happy with what the definitions are, adds in the photos, make sure that the citations are all there. And then when she's done, she said, okay, great. Go ahead and click. Then I go in to the database and I can actually list them out so that it's actually the content that I need for the book. And I can take this file that comes out of it, drop it into an editor, and boom, I can edit this thing and send it off to Amazon. One other thing I can do, and I won't spend too much time with it here. Let's get this thing out of my way. And I can go into Plantain app, which is another tool, one that I use that um, builds business logic and programs on top of DNN. And I built some things to make it even easier for her to edit, to put in new terms, and I can show you how to do that some other time. But that's a little bit over my 5 minutes, and let's just wrap it up there.
All right, that was really interesting. I have one quick question. Go back to the page you were just on with the Expando listings. So am I correct that search by book chapter, is that the categories?
Those are categories.
Okay.
Exactly. So
I
that worked
figured it
out
had to be,
great.
but
Yeah.
that's really smart. I like that.
So
What's
you can,
amazing to me is you're literally every single term and feature in EasyDNN news, you're reusing as something else, and it all fits together perfectly for your project.
that was the stunner for me too when I first
Yeah.
did it was that wow, this would be perfect, and all I got to do is kind of rethink what each of the pieces were. The French term, so if you want to know all of the things that Hercule Poirot says, that is tags. So that's an easy DNN news tag. And I just tag the article. I have her tag the article as French. The ones that she's putting out now, which are not part of the first the 11 books in the 1920s. She marks as new, and that's a tag so that you can search just on those. So, yeah, everything that's here is easy DNN functionality. One other thing that I didn't mention, but that's also to answer your question, I don't show the details. The details are for her with all of her notes. So, for instance, she goes into this phrase here, and this read more would take you to a detail page, but I created a template for the detail page as well, and that never shows the details. The only way
Mhm.
that you see the details is if you actually edit the article, and then that's the typical. Let's see, let's collapse that. Um, the summary, there's her definition. And in this case, it's very simple, but she has a bunch of different notes on the terms that she didn't want to put into the definition, but she wanted to retain.
Hey, I gotta say, because you got it on screen, and I've only recently converted to it, but if you get into the EasyDNN version 14, you gotta switch to the new UI. It'll trip you up two or three times, and then within a day or two, you'll be like, this is so much faster and better.
I'm looking forward to moving her to that. I've already
It
done
is
that on
really
a
worth
couple
it.
of sites.
It's a
Oh,
time
definitely
saver.
so. Yeah, yeah, I believe it. So I'm looking forward to it because I had mentioned at the end of the little blurb that I just did about how I used Plantain app, and it was mostly because of the time that it took to add a new article in. And I thought it would be much quicker to do it this way
Mm.
uh, than to use the EasyDNN news. But who knows when we switch it over to version 14, may very well be faster still.
Right. Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, actually, I've never used this software. I'm just curious, how much has it changed from year to year? Because I find that, the learning curve of people sometimes can be a little steep if there's a lot of changes. Has it been, Jeremy mentioned that there have been some changes. How's it been?
I think the latest has been rapid changes. The new interface, the connections with AI are rapid change. Prior to that, I've been using it since, I don't know, 4 or 3 or something, very, very
Mm,
long time. Um, and the basic interface, it's prettied up just a little bit. I mean, what you saw before with the settings, the article editor is a little nicer than it's been, but by and large, it's similar. Jeremy, you've used the software as well. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's stayed really well organized, and their choices and the ways and places they add the features have gone really well. Like, for example, one of the biggest changes was a long time ago, like maybe 2012, 2014, they added events. It's just a
Yeah.
few more fields and an article becomes an event. And when they did that, they did it in a way that it did not break the flow, the data, everything has been there to use or ignore. And I also got to compliment them. They are one of the best as far as upgrades, module upgrades. I do not actually remember ever regretting doing an EasyDNN news upgrade. Always worked flawlessly.
Right. And they usually at an upgrade, I don't know what they've done of late, the last couple of them. I'm just thinking back all the experience of installing them. They usually had like a version 6, 7, 8
Mhm.
upgrade and a 9, an 8, or 9, 10 kind of thing, where the one install will take care of you for a number of different versions of DNN.
Yes, I, I have, I have, uh, I have had a site last fall. I think we went from something like version 8 or 9 all the way to 13 with no problems. One upgrade.
Yeah.
I almost never do in betweens just because they're so good at, we've had so much reliability with their upgrade process.
One thing I didn't bring up here, but there's some brain power in the audience that would help. When I first wanted to do this, I wanted to create, take advantage of what DNN originally was for, a membership site, and use paid, like the PayPal pay for your user ID. And I didn't know how I understood that there was something in there. Some of the pieces are still there, but I don't know, and nor have they been kind of maintained or anything because that capability is not there anymore. But you used to be able to set up a register and then pay an amount of money, and then boom, you are now a user of the site. That would have been great. I couldn't find it. Luckily, I was a Planet App user already, and I just used Planet App and the PayPal extension that they have, and that's how people are buying. That's how I created the automation for people to register, pay their $20 for a lifetime membership, and now they're a user.
Yeah, those features that DNN had way back, there's still remnants of them lying around, but I think parts have been removed or left behind. I don't know of anyone that's even tried to use it in a long time. I mean, we even have a project where we want to integrate with Stripe, and we aren't even looking at that. We're just jumping ahead with our own little custom solution. The Stripe developer tools are fantastic, so we're just doing everything our own way with custom logins and people being able to they're basically just buying their role
Right,
for their
right.
membership. So, yeah, if anyone, maybe Daniel or someone knows, are those features in DNN even, is it possible to still use them? Or am I more correct that they've been left so far behind that it's not worth trying?
So technically back then there was built-in PayPal integration and that is no longer a thing. So there
Okay.
is no longer there is no longer anything built in for payment, basically. However, portal usage, that logic still works. So if you would build an extension that would capture payments and create the portal for the person or enable stuff based on a payment, the rest is still usable.
Okay.
That's just so hard to get my head around. I don't want to think that way.
Yeah, there was a time we were trying something called DNN Now. We branded it called DNN Now, where that's exactly what they could do. Is that, I was hoping that we'd be able to spin up an instance automatically after somebody paid. We kind of gave up on that, and we just went with, okay, we'll build you the basic site with a basic template, and then you jump in there and start adding your stuff into it. And that was the DNN Now project. But the
And when I started, it was actually my hosting model. You want a DNN website, just go here, buy your own portal hosting, and set you up a team and stuff. And like you said, it wasn't manageable after a while because of upgrades and because of a bunch of reasons.
yeah,
We did this for a few associations back in the day, and
Mm.
where they had basically an upcharge for, hosting your own site through the association, and we built some automation for that to all work pretty seamlessly, actually. So they kind of made their payment
Mm.
to the association, and it would spin them up a site, and they would choose which template they wanted to use to get started, and would set up their roles and all that good stuff. It was pretty slick. Kind
So
of
am
miss
I
those days.
correct? This was back in the day when Agatha was still writing these books and there was rotary phones. Is that about right?
DNN's not quite that old, but
Okay. All right. Well, we should move on. Thanks
great.
very much, Don. This
You're
was
very
really
welcome.
interesting, at least to me. So our next demo is from Marco. I assume Marco's ready. So take it away.
Okay.
Marco, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking for for the the button to mute. Okay, do you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, welcome to this demo. This month demo is about domain authority. The idea or the main idea of this session is just to bring a cool and nice set of ideas, specific ideas for anyone that wants to get this started as soon as possible without too much research or looking for documentation. So I'm pretty much just going to cover uh, SEO off and on pages ideas to do domain authority specifically. And at last, I'm going to share a couple of examples from clients that we have of how you guys can build authority and try to find those opportunities on the web. First, DA, that's the acronym of domain authority. So it has a lot of different definitions. One thing that I learned in the 15 years actually that the agency holds right now, it's that, when you find something written on paper and you go through it and then you compare it with the reality and your own experience, then that definition might change a bit, right? So the way we look at this definition of domain authority in the agency, it's that we don't look at it as an absolute measure. The idea is not to get the highest score. That's not the idea. It's we look at it as a metric that allow us to have a better idea, a summarized idea of what's the website's relevance for a very specific subject area or service or industry. Comparing ranking levels to domain authority scores, well, the relationship is higher domain authority scores, well, better ranking. So having or trying to have a higher domain authority score is going to give you eventually more opportunities to be on the first page of the search engine result pages. So in other words, it's a metric that helps predict the website ranking potential. But that's all related to the niche that you belong and the competitors, what they're doing. So it's not only about the number, but it's just we look at it as a whole, but it's just a summarize of how potential that website is or it could get, including comparing competitors. Now, how can you help your domain authority score? Well, there are two different options. You can do SEO on page or SEO off page. So on page, it's all the technical and content related optimizations that you can run in the website itself, that you don't have to wait for anything or anybody. You just, you can optimize your titles. You can make sure that your header one are not the same as the title of the page. Stuff like that. That's all SEO on page. But then we have the SEO off page, which are all the things, all the efforts that you can do that are not inside of your website, but it's actually outside in the internet world. So, what are the SEO off pages idea that I bring today? First, internet directories, all the available internet directories that you can find that are a fit for your business. Not that I'm going to create profiles on any internet directory that I find. Doesn't matter if it relates or not to my business niche or my business itself. You have to find directories that are there available and that are related to your business niche. Also, review platforms are really a really good starting point to get yourself on 2 feet on regarding to the domain authority. Platforms such as Trustpilot, Google My Business as well, that allows users to write a review, Yelp, and there's many other platforms like this. TripAdvisor, if you are a travel agency or you are a tour operator in your country or your area. Also, another idea for off-page SEO, it's online forums. It's important for, well, we will recommend this to any of our clients, but it's important for every website owner to be aware of the forums that are related to the service or the business they provide, and try to be involved, try to be part of those forums, have a valid user, not as the company name, but as a person, have a user for yourself and log into discussions coming out. And if you see the possibility, then just mention your business name, which is also valid, and also the URL if the forum allows you to include URLs. Most of the forums right now, you need to have some time before they give you permission to add links. But if you get your website published, this will also be a good idea to get started. Find those online forums and try to get active on the discussions happening over there. Now, the toxicity score on a lot of websites in the internet, which just have a link pointing at your website, it's something that it's important to keep an eye on. You can use an SEO tool like Moz or SEMrush to have a nice and quick way to find those links. And once you find those links and you check those websites and you find out that those websites are just a bunch of links pointing at different websites, then you can go into the disavow tool that you have available on the Google Search Console, and you can register those URLs or domain depending on each scenario, and tell Google that, don't listen to those links. Google is really good at identifying spam websites, which are just for links building, but it's also good to be proactive and to tell and let Google know that, you know, those links, don't listen to them, especially because if you don't do this task in a very proactive way, you might end up having a bunch of junk traffic going into your website that it's not good, high quality traffic, and you might analyze your data, your analytics, and you might not get the right picture because some of that traffic could not be relevant to your business because it's coming from all these toxic websites. So it's also a good off-page idea to keep track on those high toxicity score websites. And SEO on pages, ideas, what you can do on your website. Well, first, now it's more important than ever to have a blog on your website. If you want to have the possibility to eventually create an article that is going to be relevant on the internet, then all of a sudden you're going to have this bunch of links pointing at that that blog article, and start having not only traffic coming in thanks to the article that you come up with, but also links pointing at from valid websites. So it's always a good strategy on page to have a blog and try to publish news about your business, about the niche that you belong to, tips, recommendations. For example, being in webinars that talk about the latest about your business niche, and then just come up with a small article about something very specific on that webinar. Sorry, on that webinar, that will eventually give you the possibility to automatically have a bunch of links pointing at your website, thanks to that article that you come up with. So having a blog and creating content, it's a good idea. Then if your niche is saturated with a bunch of competitors, which is something normal right now, we recommend trying local SEO and focusing on service areas that you work or your business office is located. I'm going to show an example after I finish with the slides about this. And the last recommendation is to get an SEO tool like Moz and SEMrush that allows you to track not only your website off page, but also on page efforts. And also a good thing that I really like about this kind of tool is that it gives you the opportunity to keep track on the competitors that you want to keep an eye on. Okay. Cool. So that's the slides. And now I'm going to move into the browser just to show you guys two examples. This one is for a client that we have in Boston, is for meal prep service. And they got like this nice article video on the local news program. So they have this video. We published this video on the main page, but this is the 5 WCVB news local from the location where the business is located, and they got this nice video that this news local news did. And once they published the video and people look at it, well, we got a pretty nice traffic injection, high quality traffic injection. A lot of people going into the website. We got included into a lot of high quality keywords, search terms that we weren't before this video. So if you have the possibility to create this kind of content, not only text, but video, and relate to like a local news, it will be a great idea to generate authority on the domain, because eventually people will look for your company and will visit your website. And the last example I have, it's this company. It's in Costa Rica. It's a moving service company. Once we were able to put these guys on the first page of Google, so let me just change the browser because I have everything logged in over there, so it's not going to look naturally. So let's just put the search here. So I'm looking for a moving company service in Costa Rica. The whole content is in Spain, but Spanish, sorry. But this is the ads, and then we have the Google My Business, and this is the organic results. So these guys are on the first position of Google. One thing that we did with the local SEO is that once we noticed that they were on the first page, we created sub pages for the different province or states in Costa Rica. So we created a landing page for San Jose, which is the main capital city of Costa Rica. Then we have another page for Heredia, which is another city, and Alajuela, which are the cities that this company works usually at. So once we did that, since these guys are already on the first page of the main search criteria, which is mudanzas in Costa Rica, then we go to Google and then we do mudanzas, but then we put Heredia, which is the city. You have the ads over here. You have the Google My Business, and then you will see that these guys are showing up again in another search term different than the previous one, but this is related to the location. And if we go into the landing page, they will jump into the page about this place. And if we do the same for Alajuela, which is the other city, we'll put that's the same as Heredia. These guys will be on the first position there, but with the landing page that talks about Alajuela. So one of the things that you can do for SEO on page is to create local pages related to the service area, so you can focus on search terms related to locations that most businesses will not be doing. And this is something that we have found in several different business areas. So that's a pretty nice idea to work on SEO. Focus on local landing pages that will cover main cities or towns that are around the business office location, so you can be relevant on the SERPs. So that's about it. I'm not sure if somebody has a question or a comment about the session, about the demo. Go ahead, guys.
I do. We do a lot of this SEO, search engine placement stuff, and I thought it was pretty interesting you brought up the cities, because it's one of the things we really like doing is we'll take a specific service or thing the client does or product and then respin the page for each city in the area, because they always search results are pretty good in their home city. Like we're in Champaign, Urbana, Savoy, Tolono, Rantoul, there's all these cities in the area. And so if they're in Mahomet, for example, we have to do a little more work to get them business in Champaign. What I wanted to ask you, the specific question is, when you are making those pages on the same topic for each city, have you ever gotten dinged for duplicate content, and what would you do about it?
Yeah. Well, we rely on the client on that part. We try to be very focused on the quality of content that they have to provide to us. But we do the cities landing pages once we are able to see the actual business showing up in the list or on a couple of the keywords from the main list we created at the beginning of the project. Because, from my perspective, for each client, we need to have a clear view of what we're trying to accomplish here. So one of the first things that we do, and it actually was the first demo I come up with on this DNN show and tell sessions, it's about keyword selection. So once you have your nice set of 10, 15 high traffic keywords or phrases, then we try to keep track on those keywords. And once we find the client is getting traffic organically from those keywords, then we'll start aiming for very specific cities around the office location. And then we give it a try, and then we analyze. And if it works, then we start adding more. So we don't do 7 landing pages at once. You know what I mean? We just go by one, and then we do a couple of tests, and then we do another one. So we go city by city. Let's put it that way. So when we get into the point that we need to create content, that pause between the landing pages creation allows us to easily approach the client and say, hey, we need a specific content from this office, from this location, not just copy and paste what we did on the other one,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, because the client eventually will just give you the same content with different keywords, you know? But at the end of the day, in our case, on our contracts, we always specify that the client is responsible for giving us the content because they are the ones who own the business, you know? So they have to give us, we can optimize the content, but definitely the meat and the juice part of the content must come from the client itself. So it all depends on the client, but once they see the results, and it's interesting because once they see the results, they're kind of like interested on getting to know how things work, and they kind of get, you know, more time to this. And we help them, for example, now with AI, you can come up with prompts to help you create this persona bar, these persona profiles. So then you can come up with high quality content, thinking about somebody in specifically. So it has now we have a different couple ways to do this, not only asking the client to do the content and just cross our fingers and hope it's high quality content, but yeah, it's a challenge. We try not to, you know, just create a bunch of landing pages for all the cities around, but we try to just go one by one and see how it goes. And once the clients see the value of that effort, they will eventually, you know, put a little more effort on the content creation for the next ones.
Yeah, we've seen that too. I've had a couple of clients recently where once they saw their, hey, I'm not found on blah in blah, and 2 months later, they're in position 2 on the first page, they get really interested right away. And
Yeah.
then they want to help because, like, oh, we know how to do that. So cool. Good answer.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Anyone
Yeah,
else have
I mean,
questions?
I have another example. Actually, it's a recent one. The flower shop in Costa Rica, it's a very saturated niche in Google to try to aim for. So if I look for this keyword, which is flower shop in Costa Rica, this is very high traffic keyword, and everybody wants to point at. But the client that we have is a flower shop who is located in a small city called Desamparados. So we just aim for that city. And this website has like 3 months not that we publish, and it's right now it's number 5. This is the one.
Cool. Yeah, I
This is
always
the
like
one.
joking and telling people we think we're good at this and we like doing this search engine placement and domain authority stuff and we like doing all this stuff, but I don't want to do it for a travel agency. There is just way too much competition for any of those valid
Yeah.
keywords. It's crazy
Well,
in that market.
yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
you do paid ads, the numbers are scary. You know, I don't
Yes.
like seeing $72 per click.
Actually, I have a story about a client who in Costa Rica they offered a service for what's the name of the service? Let me just show it real quick because I don't remember in English. These guys. So they provide sheet metal. No, thank you. Sheet metal component and cabinet fabrication. They're in Costa Rica, right? So they came to me once and hey Marco, we want to start putting ads in the coast, both coasts from the US, you know, California and Florida, because you know there's the ports over there and businesses can buy our services, and we can all come up with all these custom metal parts and send them over. So they would start with the Google Ads, and now that you mentioned the cost, Jeremy, when we analyzed the costs, we discovered that the cost per click in the United States for this specific service was way beyond my client's capacity to bid. So it was like $25 per click. It was crazy amount. So after we did that search, we just say, oh no, we're not going to do that. Let's just point at some other country or let's do something else because it's just too expensive. And yes, there are certain business niche that, you know, the cost per click is really high. So you have to think a different approach or solution for them. Okay, I think there are no more comments or questions.
All right. I guess it's my turn.
Yes, let me just stop sharing. There you are.
All right. Well, I am Jeremy Farrance. I work at a place called Security Solutions in Central Illinois. And today I'm going to do a Too Sexy demo, which of course I think is pretty interesting. Can you see my screen?
Oh, yes.
All right, good. Let me get these Zoom things out of my way. Sorry. All right, so what you're looking at here is one of our clients' websites, and they do really high-end photography. He's a residential architect that specializes in high-end new homes and renovations. So he actually builds houses like these that you see here. We built him a somewhat advanced portfolio of projects so that we could focus on the architecture, the photography, the images, really show off what's going on here. This house in particular is jaw-dropping. It's on a lake, and it was originally owned, if you recognize the actor and actress's names. I remember the movie Cocoon in the 80s, Jessica Tandy and Hume Cronin. This is not what their house looked like. This is after the renovation, but this property on a lake was an amazing project, and that's the architect there. Anyhow, what we're looking at today is the gallery feature. So we're going to switch to this smaller project and show you this gallery in Too Sexy. Here's what the home page looks like. It's set up so that you see a different image in here about every 10 minutes. We do the reminder for editors up here when you're logged in so that you can see that if you're not logged in, you ain't going to see your new picture for at least 10 minutes. So anyhow, here is what the gallery looks like to the public after you've drilled down to it. And here's what it looks like when you're logged in as an editor. And we, remind people about the various features and how things work. But what I want to get at here is to show people, see these features you can edit here where this one's sort order of 300, sort order 500, this one's visible, this one's featured, and the featured ones are the ones that show up in here. So just these three are featured. And these are done as metadata on library images. So I've kind of jumped ahead. So now I'm going to back up and show you for each image that is in this library. Let's go all the way back to here. And I'll just show you the setup. And I'm not really showing you a setup we made. It's a setup we enhanced, but we're in the gallery app in Too Sexy. So there's an album, and each of the albums is using library images. So see the input type of library here? And the name of the field is images. So when you go into one of these albums, like Lakefront Cape Remodel, all of the images are dragged and dropped into this one folder. And then each of these can have metadata. And what I'm pointing out is when you click on this, it's the same feature you saw when we were on the page. We've gone to this set of metadata for each image. And this is a really fascinating feature because you're doing a fairly complex database setup here. All of your images are ending up kind of in this obscure library folder, yet they still have the ability to have metadata attached. Every single image can have its own sort order, its own usage and notes and so forth. So I wanted to show you now that we've kind of explained that a little. Now that we're back on the page, over here, these 3 images are featured on the main page for the Craftsman Carriage Lodge. I'm going to show you that I can go in here, edit, and I'm going to take that first pretty picture, and I'm going to say normal, and hit OK. Now caching is probably going to mess me up, but I'll live with it. And now it appeared over here because I think I have a requirement of 3 images. So let's change the order of these so that, not that one. Let's change that one. So it's 500. And now these 2 will swap if that makes sense. But this is metadata. And what I'm really trying to point out here is, I'm going to go back in here. Come on. This metadata is a content type. So as you can see, this set of fields here for usage, that's where we're coming up with our normal, our featured, and our hide, meaning hidden from public, and we don't show it anymore. And our sort order is just a number. We kind of train the clients. We default at 500. We do 100 to 999, and we tell people to go by 10s so that you can hit an in-between someday when you want to. And then removed is an advanced Boolean. That's when the architect tells us, I don't ever want anyone to see that photo. And you set that Boolean to true, and it's been removed. And we also warn them. I'll show you in here, actually. If you turn that on, it says removed. Once you click save, only Acurity can find and restore it. You probably are using the usage feature above and just set it to hidden. All right, so now that I've kind of over-described what's going on with the metadata here, each image has a record, its own metadata in this content type. And what's really fascinating about this is that content type. Let's hit edit here and show you. That content type's name is, no spaces, album, images, library. Oh, I clicked on the wrong one. This is the one I should have clicked on. Album, images, library, metadata. And that is a setting in the fields for library content types. So you go to here and you do album, images, library, metadata, and that tells TwoSexy that this content type is your metadata for each image. So I'm going to switch this to extended. I made another content type with a lot more fields, just as a fun experiment. So that one's set now. I'll show you in that we now have location categories. So it's an exterior front view of the house, exterior back view, family room, living room, interior, exterior view, interior staircase. You can specify the photographer because these are very high-end paid photos. I kid you not, some of these photo sets cost over $10,000 for the photographer to come out and do them. We also like to know per image what the quality level is, and we have a fairly extensive system here for poor, not usable, and that's actually something we'll recognize in code, and it's an additional thing to hide the image. We have 3 or 4 different ways to hide the image. But once this is up by a photographer, it's good, better, best, outstanding, and money shot is the term the architect came up with. There's about 7 photos across his library of thousands, which we consider money shots. This one's an example. That's a money shot. It's called a money shot because when people see that, that makes them pick up the phone and call him to be their architect. So notice all these features here, and all I've done is in the library field type, switched this to point to my new content type. Now, when I go into the album, actually, I'm going to go, yeah, about single arts and crafts, go in here, and notice none of these have metadata yet. If I click this, now per image, I can specify the photographer. I can say the quality is, oops, that's not quality. Let me look at the picture again. The picture was exterior side view. There we go. Photographer, I don't remember who that is. Quality on this one was photographer, but not quite. Actually, this was not a photographer. This was done with an old digital camera, if I remember correctly. It's not an interior, it's an exterior. It is the original. It has not been edited. Ralph said, don't feature this one. He actually did in a recent meeting. And another feature that hasn't been used yet, but the original file name is often pretty important. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I have a dog here with a toy who is picking now to distract me. I guess it's because I'm talking into a microphone and he thinks it's time to have fun. So anyhow, all of these items allow you to drag a bunch of photos into a library file and set up metadata, and you can curate as much as you want in the way of information. We have a new project we just got last week, which we're planning to use this feature for. It's a, one of the local towns has a historical society, historical and genealogy society. Don't ask me to spell that. And they've given us literally thousands of photos. And all of these photos are tied into spreadsheets and documents. And in the spreadsheets are columns, fields of information like original document, original file name, scan date, all this other stuff. And so we are crafting a set of metadata so that we can simply let the client scan the photos, drag and drop them in here, and then put in all the metadata. So this will begin to save them time once it's used on the website. And in addition, we're going to give them ways to generate reports, and we're going to replace their cobbled together PDFs with HTML to PDF outputs, which are going to be perfect because all the data just gets entered on the first go through. So just to wrap up, I did not set my timer, so I hope I'm not going too long. But just to wrap up, one of the things, and I did part of this demo for, in-house a few weeks ago. One of the things people ask is, okay, but now if I'm in code, how do I get to the metadata? How did you get usage normal in this little tool up here when it's not appearing over here? And how did you make that toolbar edit button? And those things actually end up being pretty easy. Too Sexy, the people there thought of all this stuff. And if you'll notice, right now, I'm inside a for each loop in the gallery. So I'm in an iFile data type, pick in, get my sorted images from the album, which was set at the start of this file from the ID in the URL. And you can see what's being done here. There's a Boolean flag for has metadata, and then each item has a metadata tag, and you can ask for the Boolean of removed to string if it's equal to false. That probably could have been done a little nicer, but anyhow, you have direct access to all this data with very simple coding. Each pick has metadata, and there's your description. There's your usage type with a fallback of visible. So this ended up being really productive. So we've used these metadata features on library images now on 2 projects and the third one that I mentioned. And I highly recommend you take a look and play with this if it matches one of your use cases, because being able to quite literally drag and drop a whole boatload of images right into a library field and then go to each image and tag them with 3 or 9 or 20 fields of metadata, very, very useful. And that's about all I have to say. Anyone have any questions? Anyone still there?
Is there anywhere to sort of get a guide towards this sort of process? Like you presented an awful lot here, and if I was thinking, gee, I'd like to do this.
It's amazing to me. It's so cool that you said I presented an awful lot. And actually, the chain of how to use and get to the metadata, I've only shown 3 small little features in the fields in 2Sexy content types. I'd be happy to show you this on the side and talk it through. Once your head clicks on this, it's so useful.
That's
Yeah,
been
it
my
looks
problem.
so useful indeed. Yeah.
I know it's a time saver too. Just being able to, like, one of the reasons I did this with this client is we would have these meetings and he would see one of these photos and he goes, "Why is that in there? Please promise me that will never get in there again." And so then I'd do this, and save while he's talking and be able to say, "Hey, don't worry about it. That one's never going to appear anyway again." We literally built the feature because of how he is with his photos.
What you said, Steve, is exactly how I feel about 2Sexy. I cannot get my head around it, and so I've always avoided it because of that. I've tried. In fact, the Agatha annotated started with 2Sexy, and there's a number of DNN Dave videos out there on YouTube with him and I building it. And the first thing that happened is there's a bunch of Razor script that has to get written, and so that was like, well, wait a minute. I was looking for a tool that I could fairly easily adapt without, writing all the programming for it. And eventually I gave it up, and that's when the light bulb went on for EasyDNNnews.
Yeah, I do agree. 2Sexy is something you get through in phases. Um, I got to admit, I I often admit to this. I think the first 2.5 years that I used 2Sexy, I was lost and using features incorrectly. I think it's much easier to get into nowadays because they've stabilized the documentation so well, and there's much more modern videos out there on how to do stuff. And that's also, to be honest, one of the reasons I wanted to start these 2Sexy demos, even though I haven't done many so far in the show and tell, is just to get people a little more into it. Like I know, I think Dave's the one, he already left, um, who will never use the content app because he's never been able to get his head around the ideas in there between using blocks and adding your data in and out of blocks. And I admit it confused the heck out of me for over 2 years in the beginning. And once it clicked, oh my God, it's so useful. Being able to control what's on the page from a reservoir of other data items and swap them in and out and rearrange them and not use sort orders, so useful for ad hoc content. So
Hmm.
anyhow, I realize I say that and it probably doesn't make as much sense until you see it, but I definitely agree 2Sexy. The benefits take a little bit of effort, but man, once you get there and the light bulbs start going off, there's a lot of light bulbs.
I remember you talking about having a very, very basic little demo on DNN itself and what you do with uh, pages and panes and modules and how to lay out something and how the very basic rudimentary kind of thing. I'm wondering if a 2Sexy rudimentary demo would would somebody like Steve or I that are wondering, should I even get into it?
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
that is my ultimate
And what
plan. I
is the
want to do
benefit? I mean,
more.
this is
I
a
want to do more
massive,
basics.
yeah. This particular one with the architect seems like a basic thing and a lot of development for the flexibility that he has going forward, meaning that he's making a large investment in this. And, is there what does one do next? Go looking for another photographer that can benefit for some a mechanism like this because you've got all of this metadata already built. Um, the relationships between pictures and how they lay out and what kinds of categories of the pictures are and all of that. Um, or is each too sexy a one-off?
I'm going to choose not to answer that right now. Those are
That's a
good
really
questions.
hard. That's a really hard question.
Yeah.
I can see like the stuff that you did there. It's stuff is sort of a one-off, but I can see what Jeremy did could be applied to so many different types of projects.
Yeah.
I'm doing something that will be a website that will be a series of stories, and I want a homepage that will let me show, snippets of these stories on them, and then select maybe by stories of a certain category. All those sorts of things would be embedded in the metadata. So I think there's it's sort of like it all looks different, but I think as you said, Jeremy, in some ways, once you get the idea of it, you start to realize all the different ways that you can apply these ideas.
Yeah, all Too Sexy really does is just abstract really well and really logically the way you would want to do a relational database. And that's not even fair to say. They've simplified it in a way that's really nice. But again, just saying those things gets me off topic. So let's wrap this up. Anyone have any other questions? Or I feel like we're at a wrap. Maybe we should talk about hitting the stop record button.